The member of Tupac Shakur's entourage, a witness to the shooting that left the rapper mortally wounded, has himself been on Sunday, is further complicating an investigation already hindered by uncooperative witnesses.
The rapper who toured with Tupac Shakur, 19-year-old Yaki Gaddafi, was shot in the head early Sunday morning on the third floor of the housing project where he was visiting his girlfriend. She found him slumped on the hallway floor, said he'd made a joke as he answered the door.
He said, yeah, what if somebody come to... We all started laughing, like, just get the door. But then he came and opened, and he came to the door.
There would be no outlaws if it wasn't for Yaki Gaddafi fool.
On November 10th, 1996, Yaki Gaddafi was in Orange, New Jersey, spending time with his girlfriend and some friends. The night was calm, just a gathering of young people, unwinding and talking. The apartment was filled with conversation, the kind of easy company that made the outside world feel far away.
She begged us, please come perform at this memorial. Me and Napoleon was in Jersey as well. We both was like, all right, we all gonna do it. I just remember the conversations with me and Fatal and Kadafi, and they was like that, they didn't want to do it, you know what I mean? But they promised me that they was going when I left before they did, and they promised me they was gonna get on the plane and come out there and do this performance with us. They missed their flights on purpose.
Some say Kadafi was avoiding some responsibilities that night.
Like, yo, y'all can catch the next one, catch the morning one. The Jersey and Atlanta, that's a 2-hour flight. Coming up with all these excuses, I was just disappointed. Like, Pop, he loved y'all, man. He did try to do everything he can. It's the least we can do is perform at his memorial for his mom.
The day before he passed away, young Noble cursed Kadafi out because he missed the flight to Pac's farewell service on purpose. Late that evening, there was a knock at the door. When it opened, a gunman stood on the other side. What happened next is unclear. Some say an argument started. Others say it was all in good fun, play fighting between friends. But then, a gunshot. The bullet struck Kadafi in the face. He fell to the floor as the room turned to chaos. Voices screamed. Blood spread across the hallway. When help arrived, it was already too late. At just 19 years old, Yaki Gaddafi was gone.
Noble, somebody on the phone, they want to speak to you. They said it's urgent. It was my homegirl, Taliba from Jersey. She said Yaki's on the floor. She was at his girlfriend's house. Her and Yaki girlfriend was like best friends. She said Yaki got shot. He's on the floor right now in the hallway, with a hole in his face.
A young life cut short, a future stolen in an instant. And in the hours that followed, one question remained. Was this really an accident? He was gone too soon. And once again, a young life was being lowered into the ground. Yaki Gaddafi's farewell service was a quiet but heartbreaking affair. Family, friends, and those who knew him best gathered to say their final goodbyes.
On the streets of Montclair, where the young rapper grew up, friends listened to his music and angrily objected to reports Fula's death was in some way connected.
His mother, Yasmin Fula, stood in mourning. She had already lost so much, and now she was burying her only son. The grief in the room was suffocating. The news of Yaki Gaddafi's passing spread quickly, but it wasn't met with shock. It was met with exhaustion. Another young artist was gone, another future stolen, another funeral. The hip-hop world had barely begun to process the violence that had already taken so many, and now there was another name to add to the list. For those closest to him, the pain was overwhelming. The outlaws had already lost Tupac. Now they had lost another one of their own.
Kadafi, then Fatal like rapping, I'm done with this the day Kadafi. Fatal left the group. These are niggas I grew up with, you know what I mean? Fatal, he called the house. He was like, fuck all this shit. I'm not rapping no more, period. Niggas is that group, I love you, da-da-da-da. But, it was a crazy time,
The grief was unbearable, but for some, there was something worse than grief, guilt. Muta Napoleon Beale was forced to face an impossible reality. The man who hit Kadafi wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a rival. It was his own cousin, Roddy Beale. Napoleon wasn't at the apartment that night, but it didn't matter. According to him, the weight of what had happened crushed him.
The next morning, after Kadafi, he got then all this. Then that's when Fatal called. He was like, yeah, for the group, he was like, I'm not even rapping no more. I'm about to be in the streets, doing whatever. He wanted to speak to Napoleon, and they get on the phone, and it was an instant like Fatal, like I'ma find him. And
in a candid interview, Napoleon discussed the tragic incident.
Your cousin ended up accidentally Kadafi?
Yes.
Napoleon revealed that while Roddy maintained the shooting was accidental, he never pressed his cousin for details, fearing that deeper questioning might uncover a more unsettling truth.
It sounded like it, my cousin told me it was an accident. I never really, because it was hard for me. I never sat down with him really, besides that day, and talked to him about it. You know what I mean? And since he been home and the times I've been around him, I never brung it up again. You understand? I just really want to accept it as an accident, because I don't want to think, something intentionally happened to Kadafi,
Outside of those who knew him personally, fans mourned the loss of an artist they believed was destined for greatness. Some called him one of the best of his generation. Others were left wondering what could have been. Yaki Gaddafi was born on October 9th, 1977 in New Jersey. Standing tall at 6'3". He carried a presence that matched his stature. But beyond his physicality was a story deeply rooted in activism and music. Gaddafi's parents were prominent members of the Black Panther Party. This connection intertwined his life with that of Tupac Shakur, whose mother was also a Black Panther.
Many friends now mourning his believed Fula and Shakur were half-brothers. It is clear they were close, both shown here with the West Side symbol that stands for gangster rap.
Growing up, Kadafi and Tupac shared more than just a friendship. They shared a brotherhood forged in the fires of social struggle and artistic expression.
Kadafi is responsible for half of the outlaws. And I know some people are gonna say, what do you mean? I thought Tupac put the outlaws together. Tupac couldn't have put the outlaws together without Kadafi.
In the early 90s, Kadafi alongside childhood friend formed the group Dramacidal, making notable appearances on Tupac's album, Me Against the World. The pivotal moment came in 1995 when Tupac, newly released from prison, sought to create a collective that embodied resilience and defiance. Together, Kadafi and Tupac founded the Outlaws.
The Outlaws, synonymous with Tupac and Yaki Gaddafi, blazed a trail of gritty street music in the 1990s.
Each member adopted a moniker inspired by figures perceived as adversaries of the Western world. Kadafi chose his alias after Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. The Outlaws debuted on Tupac's All Eyes on Me album.
Tupac wanted to put together a supergroup. He instructed Kadafi and gave Kadafi the responsibility to go out there and find some of the best rappers that he could find.
Kadafi's deep voice and raw lyrical prowess set him apart. He was a force within the group, contributing significantly to tracks that have since become iconic. His artistry was a blend of his upbringing, his experiences, and his vision for a better world.
Kadafi solely responsible for half of the outlaws. I always like to say, Tupac put the first half together with me, Castro, and Kadafi. Kadafi put the second half together with Hussein Fatal, Young Noble, and Napoleon.
Unfortunately, both Kadafi and Tupac passed away before they could fully realize their dream.
Definitely was a sad situation because Kadafi, he was like a best friend of mine. Kadafi was the one who introduced me to Tupac. He was my childhood friend. So when that happened, man, it was wow. That's the one thing that, it was a test that I wasn't prepared for.
According to Napoleon, Gaddafi's passing was especially tragic because he and the shooter were friends.
I introduced Kadafi to my cousin. I introduced them together and they became friends. They started building their own relationship even without me,
Days after Gaddafi's passing, Roddy turned himself in. He told the police it was an accident. He was a teenager. The case never went much further. There was no high-profile trial, no deep dive into what had really happened that night. Roddy pled guilty and sentenced to just 7 years in prison. Yaki Gaddafi's passing was officially ruled an accident, but not everyone accepted the narrative. Gaddafi's mother believed her son's passing was intentional. She never accepted the idea that her son's passing was an accident. To her, there were too many unanswered questions, too many convenient details, too many people staying silent. She believed Roddy Beale had a reason to hit Gaddafi, and she believed there was a cover-up to protect him.
Yasmin really believes that Napoleon sided with his cousin over his friend Kadafi for the homicide of her son.
According to Fula, threats had been made against her son before. She claimed witnesses had been pressured into keeping quiet. She believed the investigation never went deep enough, that justice had never truly been served. Fula accused Napoleon of covering up the hit to protect his cousin, maintaining that he had spread falsehoods about the incident for years. She claimed he continued to push the accident narrative to maintain credibility and financial gain from his association with Tupac's legacy. She further connected Gaddafi's passing to the broader cover-up surrounding Tupac's passing, framing both as cases of betrayal and conspiracy. She referenced The Homicide of Yaki Gaddafi, a book she claimed contained the true account of her son's passing, implicating police mishandling and a deliberate effort to obscure what really happened. She strongly condemned Napoleon's involvement in shaping the public's perception of the case, insisting that he had no right to speak on Tupac's passing while continuing to deny the truth about Kadafi's. Napoleon responded to Yasmin Fula's accusation in an Instagram post as well as interviews, defending himself against claims that he had covered up Kadafi's passing. He stated that he had been in Atlanta, Georgia, at Tupac's mother's house when Kadafi passed away and was not in the same state as Kadafi or his cousin during the incident.
At that particular time, it was known in New Jersey where a lot of youngsters was getting high off of pills. I'm not sure what type of pills they was taking, but everyone was dumping pills, you understand? My little cousin Roddy, he also never would leave, he always had a gun on him, you know what I mean? And imagine an individual who's not in his right mind, he probably was years old, always high, playing with a gun. You know, he said that he was playing with the gun, pointed it in the face of Kadafi, and the gun accidentally went off.
Napoleon explained that after learning of the shooting, he flew to New Jersey and personally convinced his cousin to take responsibility by turning himself in.
I went to New Jersey, I flew to New Jersey, and even people from my hood wasn't letting me know where my cousin was. It was like they was hiding him out. My brother knows, like, we don't know where he at. And I'm like, man, that's strange, nobody know where he at, you know what I mean? So eventually he was in the projects, he was hiding out in the projects, and I was able to go see him. So he was in the staircase in the project. I'm like, man, what happened? And I think he was eating on some sunflower seeds or something, but his face looked numb, you know? He was like, it was an accident. I said, okay, if it's an accident, man, turn yourself in then.
He claimed that he had gone against his own family and neighborhood to ensure that Roddy faced the consequences of his actions.
He's out of prison. He's been in and out of prison, but he's out of prison now. And he's positive, you know, he's staying out of trouble, just raising his family, his kids.
Finally, he expressed confidence in his own integrity, stating that he had never betrayed anyone and had remained solid throughout his life. He and some others maintained that he had done the right thing in the aftermath of Gaddafi's passing and had no reason to feel guilt over the situation.
Napoleon, in my opinion, did everything he was supposed to do as a friend to Gaddafi. He wasn't even in town, went and talked to his cousin, got his cousin's side of the incident, told his cousin he needs to go take responsibility for that action, or convinced his cousin.
Yasmin Fula responded that while she had never blamed Napoleon for his passing, she did blame him for allowing falsehoods to be repeated in interviews and for failing to seek out the truth despite the pain it might have caused him. She also accused him of exploiting Kadafi's and Tupac's passing for attention and financial gain, calling him a crow eating off the carcass of deceased people. She also provided specific details from police and medical reports that she said supported her claim that Kadafi's passing was premeditated. According to Fula, Roddy had threatened to hit Kadafi weeks before the shooting. He had called ahead to say he was coming, but told others not to warn Kadafi. He had an accomplice who restrained Kadafi in a headlock so that Roddy could aim. She pointed out that Roddy was significantly smaller than Kadafi, just 5'6" and 135 pounds, compared to Kadafi, 6'4", 200 pounds, implying that he would have needed assistance to overpower Kadafi. She also referenced the confession in which Clark allegedly admitted to knowing that Kadafi was wearing a bulletproof vest. Additionally, she stated that the medical examiner disputed Clark's claim that he had fired from 3 feet away, citing stippling patterns on Kadafi's face as proof that he had been shot at close range. Finally, she declared that Napoleon's continued defense of his cousin made him complicit in the crime. She argued that he had a responsibility to seek out the truth instead of dismissing her police reports and witness statements. She ended her statement with the chilling remark that Napoleon should be grateful that Tupac Shakur was not alive when Kadafi was hit. Young Noble also found himself at odds with Napoleon after Noble accused Napoleon of clout chasing and spreading lies in interviews. Noble took to social media to call out Napoleon, stating that while he had avoided interviews for the past 7 years, Napoleon had done 1,000 interviews and, in doing so, had exposed himself. He claimed that simply speaking the truth contradicted Napoleon's Napoleon's narrative and implied that Napoleon needed to reflect on his actions rather than engaging in what he saw as unnecessary public discourse. Adding to the suspicion around Gaddafi's passing, he had been in a car behind Tupac Shakur during the fatal shooting in Las Vegas. He reportedly saw the assailants and had expressed willingness to identify them.
Give interviews on Bomb First. So shout out. Whoa. Damn, John. There you go, getting me in trouble again. Gonna get some email or letter coming out of the blue that I forgot about, that I got or didn't get. But it's unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate situation.
Gaddafi's passing just 2 months after Tupac's fueled speculation about a possible connection between the two tragedies. Some theorists propose that local police in Orange, New Jersey exploited individuals with compromised backgrounds to carry out the hit on Kadafi. Additionally, it's noted that Gaddafi's description of Tupac's shooter conflicted with official theories, as he stated the assailant was not dark-skinned. This discrepancy has fueled further speculation about a possible cover-up.
Y'all ever can follow them on IG and check them out? They living a good and beautiful life. Kadafi will be happy. I'm sure he's looking down, smiling on his family. Napoleon, in my opinion, did everything he was supposed to do as a friend to Kadafi. He wasn't even in town, went and talked to his cousin, got his cousin's side.
Was this truly an accident, or was it something much bigger? For now, the truth remains hidden beneath conflicting stories, lost evidence, and decades of silence. But one thing is certain: Yaki Gaddafi deserved more. Rest in peace, Yaki Gaddafi.